to the Legends with Lance podcast. You're listening to episode 2 in the Shaping of Ireland series. Our story today explores the early Christian age, a period that saw Ireland slowly Christianise, leaving behind its pagan past. Last week we had entered the revolutionary era of the Iron Age and the arrival of the Celts. It was a period that brought a whole new culture, language and infrastructure. Ireland was booming, both socially and economically. In the final centuries of the Iron Age, the period between 100 BC and 400 AD, Ireland experienced a sudden decline in economic and social prosperity. Archaeologists recorded substantial changes in human activity, coined the Irish Dark Age. Essentially, agriculture declined, and there was little to no evidence of life in the 1st and 2nd century. The population, and indeed living standards, is said to have dramatically declined. Evidence to support this is pollen data from bogs, and the absence of writings regarding this period. Interestingly, records highlight a sharp recovery in the 3rd and 4th century. It is somewhat of a mystery why there was this blackout in life, or at least evidence of life during this period, and we only have hypotheses to go by. If you know what was happening in neighbouring Britain, Julius Caesar had invaded, and perhaps this was some way related. And it is also theorised that the 3rd and 4th century revival was as a result of a Hibernio-Roman relations. This special relationship between Ireland, known then as Hibernia, and the Roman Empire is probably what kick-started the economy again. As I said last week, it was interesting that the Romans never invaded Ireland, but nonetheless, Ireland was influenced economically, culturally and militarily. Roman coins and jewellery can be found in places like Newgrange, and evidence of Roman presence is seen in various forts across the country. But despite the economy picking up again, Ireland had become a barbarian land. At least that was the impression from the Romans. Unlike most of Europe, now under Roman rule, Ireland had no central governance. The island was divided into hundreds of small kingdoms, each with their own rules and laws, and of course they squabbled amongst themselves as well. Perhaps this is another reason why the Romans didn't invade. They probably were too busy fighting off barbarian attacks and raids from the Irish pirates attacking Britain. Despite this, the Hibernian-Roman relationship continued right up until the collapse of the Western Europe Empire in about the 5th century. But as the Roman hold over Britain fell, so too did sackings and attacks increase, a period known as the sub-Roman Britain. During this time, Irish pirates and tribes took many slaves from Britain. One such slave being a young man who history would remember as St. Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland. Now when you think of St. Patrick, we think of snakes and shamrock, and the man who single-handedly converted the pagans to Christians. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to burst your bubble here from the offset. Although St. Patrick played a key role in the Christianisation of Ireland, he didn't do it alone, and it certainly didn't happen in one generation. In fact, conversion into Christianity was a very complicated process, lasting centuries. And Christianity existed in Ireland well before St. Patrick arrived. But I guess what St. Patrick did was lay the foundations. Christianity probably arrived to Ireland along with all the other exchanges brought on by a Hibernian-Roman relationship. But Christianity wasn't welcomed to Ireland with open arms. And I guess, why would it be? Humans by their very nature resist change, especially when those change impact on their beliefs. And I guess the indigenous Irish were very much set in their ways, and you may have converted the odd one or two. But I'm guessing being an early Christian wasn't easy. And it's obvious from the extremities that they went in building their monasteries. They have monasteries in some isolated areas. Think about Skellig Michael, for example. The first known missionary to Ireland was that of Bishop Palladius, who was sent to the barbarian island by Pope Celestine, obviously to speak the word of God and to bring humanity to this wild west of Europe. I'm sure this was no easy voyage. Even getting to Ireland, Palladius would have had to navigate across a Europe slowly falling apart. The Roman Empire was in decline, and the Dark Ages had arrived. But I'm sure whatever he faced in Europe was only preparation for what was yet to come. It is said he arrived in Arklow, and he focused much of his efforts mainly in the south, much of the Midlands, Leinster and Munster, particularly the east, and there is evidence to support he centred around Cashel. And his work was successful, despite being overshadowed by St. Patrick. But that's to be expected, because St. Patrick had one advantage over Palladius. And that was St. Patrick lived in Ireland for years before he began his missionary work. In fact, Palladius had never been to Ireland, couldn't even speak the language. St. Patrick had a much better understanding of the culture and the language. And as you very well know, the key to communication is to being able to understand each other. So, who was our patron saint of Ireland? Patrick was born in Britain, and although the location is uncertain, and there are some to suggest it was in England and Scotland, but he's widely regarded as having been from Wales. He was also not known as Patrick. Instead, his name was Maewyn, and he came from a religious background. In many ways, you could say Christianity was the family business. His father was a deacon for the Christian church, while his grandfather was also a priest. Maewyn himself wasn't really religious, and it is said that he developed his faith during the 6-year period that he was a slave in Ireland, after being abducted from his home by Irish pirates and sold into slavery. At age 22, he escaped slavery and boarded a ship home, eventually reuniting with his family. Maewyn continued his Christian studies and was ordained a priest soon after. He was compelled to return to Ireland and spread the word of God after a vision of a voice calling him.
We appeal to you, holy servant boy, to come and walk among us.
He returned to Ireland, landing in Wicklow, but wasn't welcomed by the locals, and soon left seeking sanctuary in Saul, County Down. And it was from here that he began his mission to convert the pagans to Christians and thus rid the island of the snakes, or so the legend goes. As we well know, Ireland is not an environment that was friendly to snakes, so it's very much a metaphor when we say that St. Patrick drove the snakes from Ireland. Maewyn's approach to converting the people to Christianity was interesting. As he had an understanding of local culture, he blended pagan ideologies and rituals with that of Christian. One such example is the shamrock, where he used the tree-leaf plant to visualise the Holy Trinity. The Holy Trinity being 3 divine persons of one God, which resembles a pagan belief around the number 3. And common in mythology, that is the triple deity, or 3 gods worshipped as one. Maewyn's legacy is recorded in his works, Confessio and Epistola, but Maewyn is a figure with historical debate. There's a lot of overlap between him and Palladius, establishing the theory of the 2 Patricks, as Palladius too was referred to as Patrick in the Book of Armagh. Perhaps the legend of St. Patrick is more a combination of multiple stories and legends and people consolidating the chronicles of Ireland, transitioning from pagans into Christianity, personified into this one figure, St. Patrick. But we do know the transition in Ireland continued well after the death of both these men, and it would be in the 6th century that dioceses were established and paganism was slowly eradicated. But it still dominated for another few centuries. Christianity continued to grow into the 6th and even the 7th century. Although the kingdoms of Ireland were tearing each other apart, it would be one king to bring them all together. One king crowned High King of Ireland and become the first Christian king of Ireland. His name was Dermot MacSurbill. and I'm sure monasteries exploded once he became in power. From this period, manuscripts and arts flourished, and Ireland earned a reputation for scholarships, drawing scholars from across Britain and mainland Europe to educate in what would become the golden age for Christianity. But while Christianity flourished in Ireland, it was very much in its own little bubble, protected by ocean and sea. You see, while Ireland was evolving into Christianity, and the kingdoms became more ordered, Europe was in the depths of the Dark Ages. The fallout from the decline of the Roman Empire saw many Western European countries ravished by barbarians. Law and order had broken down, and a new wave of sackings were on the horizon. Germanic tribes disrupted trade, and government of the empire west of Rome was becoming increasingly impractical. This opened up an opportunity for the Norse people of Scandinavia to expand their kingdoms and explore new lands across the continent. They sacked and raided country after country, expanding their conquests toward the British Isles. They would become known as the Vikings, and it wouldn't be long before they reached Irish shores. But that is a topic for another episode. As always, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. It was a whistle-stop journey across a period that sparked the decline in the Gaelic pagans and the rise of Christian Ireland, moving us on yet another few centuries towards the country we know today. Next week we will continue where we left off, the arrival of the Vikings to Ireland. But until then, bye for now.